Welcome, everybody. Once again, I am Mohawk Matt, and I have brought you on a fantastic human who is in the science technology world inside the Navy and the Marine Corps. And I'm really excited for you to meet him and hear what he's got to say. Today, I've got Dr. Bob Brizzolara. Bob, how's it going?
Going very well. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to talk to you today, Bob. How's life out where you are?
Life is good. It's a beautiful day, as you can see out here behind me, and just enjoying the weather.
Fantastic. I'm enjoying the weather too. It's like a nice 69 degrees in the room I'm in, so it's great weather in here.
Right. Yep.
So, Bob, why don't you tell us kind of what you do inside the Navy and Marine Corps?
Yes, sir. I am a program officer at the Office of Naval Research, and as you mentioned, Matt, I work on managing science and technology programs for the future Navy and Marine Corps. And specifically, I manage S&T programs in the area of autonomous ships and boats. So these are ships and boats that do not have any people on board for perhaps very extended periods of time. And if you think about why that's important to the Navy and the Marine Corps, at least three reasons. First of all, if there are no people on these vessels, we can keep those people out of dangerous situations. So for example, if a Navy uses ships with people on them today to sweep minefields, to clear the mines out of minefields. So you take the people out of that equation, that keeps those people out of danger. Secondly, if the ship does not have to have accommodations for people on board, spaces, etc., that allows us to completely reimagine the design of that ship, meaning the shape of that ship. So we can optimize it for other things if we don't have to worry about having people on board. And the third reason is by not having people on board a ship or a boat, that allows the Navy and the Marine Corps, if they wish, to consider that platform to be expendable. So they can intentionally put it in more dangerous situations and use it in completely different ways than they do today. So that enables new missions and new tactics for the Navy and the Marine Corps. So it's a pretty important area to be working in, and there is a lot going on in this area. It's very, very exciting times.
That's fantastic, Bob. What I really picked up there was the safety. You're really focused on keeping people safe and that human safe, which is really important.
Yes.
So that's great. So, and you kind of focus on the small crafts, right? Kind of the smaller, or am I wrong? And you're focusing on like the big Navy carrier ships.
Nothing that big, Matt. But yes, we focus on anything from boats that are 10 to 15 feet long up to boats that are about 130 feet long. So very, very big, very large range of sizes within that. But on the 130-foot side, they are getting fairly big, but nothing as big as a carrier.
Okay. So for the regular world, pretty big boat. For the Navy, this is like a baby ship.
That's true. Yeah.
Very cool. So Bob, how did you get here? Like, did you, and I don't mean at your house, you probably woke up and walked to your kitchen table, but how did you get to here in this science and this kind of field of technology?
Yeah, so there's a story that goes along with that. So going back to when I was starting college, I did not know what I wanted to do. I did not know what I wanted to major in.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
So. Well, right. Yeah. So I entered college being undeclared, not having a declared major, but I knew I was interested in science, and I knew I liked science. And that interest really goes back to when I was a fairly young boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. My father, I come from a family that had an emphasis on science. My father has a PhD in chemistry, and his father was a chemist. They both worked for DuPont in the private sector. But beyond that, it was really more my father's hobbies and interests. So for example, he was a amateur radio. He was a ham radio person. So he had a shortwave radio station in his basement. I used to go down there and watch him use that. And then moreover, he built many of the radios that were part of that station from kits.
Wow.
So I watched him do that. And at a very young age, I started learning what does a resistor do? What does a capacitor do? What's a transformer for? And all those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
then I got a little bit older, maybe 10 years old, and I became very interested in radios and electronics for myself, everything
Okay.
from shortwave, citizens band, fire, police, et cetera, et cetera. Not just, and it was partly to hear who was on the air and what they were talking about, but also how the radio worked and how I could make it work better. So that resulted in all manner of cables and wires being strung around our house so I could put the antenna up higher. I remember drilling a hole in the ceiling of the closet in my bedroom so I could get the antennas up to the attic, and so on and so on. And then
Oh,
I got a
that's
little
awesome.
bit older yet, go to college now, and the crowd I ran with, was that we were all became audiophiles, right?
Ah,
Who could have the best music system, the best stereo system, lowest total harmonic distortion at the highest output power, all on a college student's budget, right? Which is challenging.
which is negative usually.
Yes, usually negative. That's right. So that was tough. And then beyond that, some of the early personal computers. I spent a lot of hours with a Commodore PET and a
Oh,
Commodore 64, learning the early personal computers. So I had this interest in radios, electronics, and so I ended up my sophomore year declaring physics as my major. That was just a great fit because now it helps me understand even more, how those things work.
yeah.
And so I got my degree in physics. Uh, Summer after my junior year, I took a job as an intern working in the lab of one of the physics professors. And I went to school at the University of Delaware, home
Okay.
of the Fighting Blue Hens, by the way.
There you go.
And
Represent.
yeah, yes. So I'm working in his lab. First exposure to scientific research. I loved it. And I decided I wanted to do more of that. So I applied to graduate school there because I wanted to keep working for him.
Okay.
And I ended up getting both my master's and my PhD in physics from the University of Delaware. And then I was selected to be a postdoc at the Naval Research Lab. So now I move over to the Navy side as a postdoc. And then was hired permanently at a Navy lab in suburban DC in
Okay.
Maryland, and spent about 12 years working at two different Navy labs in Maryland before moving over to the Office of Naval Research, which is where I've been ever since. So lots of interesting, fascinating
Yeah.
waypoints along the way. And again, at the beginning, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I'm glad I ended up where I am. I'm having a lot of fun.
That's great, Bob. That's fantastic. So what are you doing now? Like where's the technology in the small crafts in the I heard a little birdie told me something about bio-inspired research maybe that's going on.
Yeah, that's one of the really exciting areas. So there are uh, at least 5 areas that are science and technology challenges
Okay.
uh, to achieving that vision of having a ship go out for a long period of time with no person ever setting foot on board.
Yeah.
So these challenges are challenges that we're actively working. The first one is in the area of perception. And by perception, I mean computer perception or machine perception. So the
Okay.
ability of things like radars and cameras to provide that perception information to the ship's computers of what other vessels are around it and so forth. So we use commercial radars and cameras, right? There's nothing special about those. The challenge is in the software that allows that camera image or that radar
Yeah.
signal to be interpreted no longer by a human that's looking at a display, but by a machine, by another piece of software that has to interpret it.
That's
So
great.
machine perception is a big challenge in this field. Second one is in the autonomy, the autonomous route planning of the ship. So the autonomy takes that perception information and plans a route without human involvement for the ship to get from point A to point B.
Okay.
But it turns out it's much more than that, because on the way from point A to point B, that ship has to do something, right? It has to do some task or some mission, whether it's searching an area,
Sure.
sweeping a minefield, following another ship. It has to do something, and it has to be able to do that and be smart enough to know what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to do it
Yeah.
without a human being involved.
Let me ask you this, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there, with the technology that you're kind of working in, what similarities that, like, how do you compare that to something in the real world, or what do I see at the store maybe that uses this similar technology that maybe you're working on?
Yeah, so driverless cars,
Okay.
right? They're going to use it's similar. It's not the same. The technology has to
Yeah.
be tailored and specific to the maritime environment.
Sure.
Aerial drones, unmanned aircraft. Again, some of the similar technologies will go into those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So
Yeah.
where do you see this going? Like 20 years from now, like maybe Bob's retired, but what about the people behind you? What about the people students watching this? What do you think they'll be working on? What do you think they'll be creating?
Right. So I think it goes back to the fact that not having people on board these ships will enable new design space for those ships, new
Okay.
shapes, because they don't have to have accommodations for those people anymore. And that's an area where we're only beginning to scratch the surface. And as a community, we're going to be working on that for a long time. And so,
Yeah.
as an example, you mentioned the bio-inspired vehicles.
Yeah.
So, fish, marine mammals, certain marine mammals are known to be very efficient swimmers, as just one example. So, by understanding the physics underlying how they can swim so efficiently, then we can try to take that knowledge and apply it to human-built vehicles. And part of that is, think about the shape of a fish or marine mammal. It doesn't look much like a ship or a submarine. So
Yeah.
it's that shape, and it's also the body flexibility is part of how they can swim so efficiently. And so just completely reimagining what a surface or a subsurface vessel looks like. I think that's where the future is. And again, it's an area we're just beginning to scratch the surface.
Definitely. Well, and I know you're very focused on the water side, but that bio has kind of triggered something for me recently. I saw an example online on the internet, because everything's on the internet. It's probably a TikTok video or something, but it was a plane. It was the difference between like planes, the way we've designed them to fly, and like how a bird flies, and how a plane just flies like this, where a bird kind of, if a plane flew like a bird, we'd all like vomit the entire time. So
Mhm.
same thing like in your application to watercraft. If you've got a boat that moves like a dolphin, I would be throwing up every 3 feet.
Eh,
So
Yes, that's exactly it, and those are great examples. But that's exactly what we're talking about. Swimming with fins rather than propellers, and
yeah,
swimming using partially body flexibility rather than having a rigid hull. That those are exactly the kinds of things that we're looking at and trying to understand better how the fish and how the marine mammals do it.
yeah, definitely. So what kind of cool experiences have you had? You worked for the Navy and Marine Corps for quite a while.
Yeah, so I've had two that really
Okay.
rise to the top. The first is, talking about managing programs where we're building advanced prototype vessels.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on that for many years. And so just a year and a half ago, I got a chance to go out and ride on the vessel that, for the program that I've been managing
Very
for all
cool.
these years. And it was, being driven by a computer. I mean, there were people on board because it was sort of they were giving people a tour.
Sure.
But it was being driven by a computer and just, riding around in the ocean like that. So that for me was an incredible experience. The second one
Awesome.
is seeing young people that started out working in programs that I manage. They started out as students, mostly graduate students. And some of those now have moved on. They became postdocs, and
Yeah.
now they've taken permanent faculty positions at various universities. So seeing these young people going from being students to postdocs to now faculty, still working in my program, is an incredible experience, seeing how they advance along the way.
That's fantastic, Bob. That's really cool to kind of see that life cycle.
Yes,
And to be able to ride on a robot boat. I mean, that's sign me up, please. That's awesome.
that was very cool.
That's very cool. So, Bob, is there anything else you want to share with us with kind of the technology you're working on or what you're up to in the Navy and Marine Corps right now?
Sure, Matt. And so looking to the future, and many of the problems that the teams that I manage are working on today are long-term problems. And we can have off-ramps where we will solve it to an extent in the short term.
Yeah.
But many of these problems we're going to be working on for years. And people that are students now are going to become, be embarking on their professional career. And we're still going to be working on some aspects of these problems. And so, we need talented young people to help us solve these problems. And we need young people, physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists, biologists, probably every one of the engineering disciplines, and so on and so on. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but across many disciplines,
Sure.
to help us work out these problems.
Definitely. Especially because I'm not going to do it because I have no idea what's going on. So we need those smart kids.
We have things for you to do, Matt, for sure.
Oh, like wave a flag, like please go turn left.
Well, we'll figure something out.
I feel like I'm going to be put in a corner with a dunce cap on or something.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, excellent. So, Bob, thank you for joining. It's been really great talking to you, kind of learning about what you're up to in the Navy.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Matt. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Bob. And students, he's talking to you guys. Bob kind of talked about what he's up to, but really, what are you up to? What are you going to design next? There were some cool, I think it'd be pretty awesome to have a fish vehicle or like a dolphin car, or it's not a dolphin car, a dolphin boat or something that moves like bio life that we have in the ocean. How are you guys going to invent it? Where do you think we're going with this? So, because Bob's going to retire, I'm going to retire. I don't do this anyway, but where do you guys think where are you going to take this in the future? Really excited to see what you guys have to say about it, and have a great day.